If you have diabetes or prediabetes, you have probably heard the advice, use cinnamon to help control your blood sugar. But before you do, you need to know a critical fact. Not all cinnamon is the same, and the wrong type could actually carry risks. So today, we are actually going to be asking the big question. Does cinnamon really work? And more importantly, is it even safe? To really get to the bottom of this, we first have to understand that cinnamon isn't just one single spice that we know of and usually put in our foods. When you grab the shaker at the grocery store, you are most likely buying Cassia cinnamon. That's one type. It's the most common type. It's a dark, strong, and even spicier version. And it's what gives that classic flavor to so many of the foods that we love. Then there is another kind, the Ceylon or Ceylon cinnamon, depending on how you say it, as a Ceylon cinnamon, which is one of often called the true cinnamon. It's lighter in color, has a more delicate and complex flavor, and it's usually a bit more expensive too. Now, this difference between Cassia and Ceylon or Ceylon is incredibly important, and we will see exactly why when we start talking about the science and the safety of cinnamon. But think about how often we actually use cinnamon. Think about it. Most people sprinkle it on in their oatmeal. Other people put cinnamon in their yogurt, or even in the morning some kind of oatmeal breakfast. It's a key ingredient in many of our favorite baked goods too, from sweet potato pie to cinnamon rolls. We add it to our coffee, our tea, or even for the flavor that we want from it. And many cultures, including many across Africa and the Caribbean, it is a simple staple in savory dishes, stews, and rice preparations. Because it's so common and beloved, it's easy to see why there is so much excitement about its potential health benefits. So, with these two types in mind, let's talk about how the research actually says, especially when it comes to blood sugar. Remember, we are talking about this in terms or in the light of its impact on your blood sugar level. Cinnamon has been shown to improve fasting blood glucose levels. The lowest fasting blood glucose levels. Now, some studies actually indicate that cinnamon, particularly the Cassia cinnamon, may help lower fasting blood sugar levels in people with type 2 diabetes, or even with people with prediabetes. And of course, if you don't want to get diabetes, you have a family history, it will still do the same by helping you lower your fasting blood sugar levels. And the reason is that it mimics or tries to copy the insulin effects. What insulin does is trying to copy it by another way is by also enhancing glucose uptake in the cells. And the second importance that has been associated by studies is that cinnamon has been shown in some research to improve insulin sensitivity. That's huge. That's really huge. Because we take medications to improve insulin sensitivity. So if we have cinnamon, a natural spice or substance that is doing this, you must agree that that's a good thing, right? What it actually means by improving insulin sensitivity is that it helps the cells, your body cells, respond, including your muscles, respond more effectively to your own insulin, and thereby allowing for better blood glucose utilization and also lowering your blood sugar levels. Now, let's go to the third important impact on you, if you think about it in terms of the studies that are out there. The third one is Cinnamon helps postprandial glucose reduction. Or, to make it simple to understand, when you eat a lot, or when you eat, after you eat, usually between an hour to 3 hours, between that window, your sugars always go up. And if you are using cinnamon, it reduces that incidence. So let's talk about what the studies is. So certain studies actually suggest that cinnamon helps reduce this rise in blood sugar levels after huge meals, And so that's a benefit that we cannot just overlook. And another thing is that the way it does this is by slowing gastric emptying or even inhibiting digestive enzymes that break down your carbohydrates. So when you eat your carbs, according to some studies, cinnamon reduces the rate at which your carbs are broken down, so you don't pick up as much glucose as you would naturally do. So that's another huge benefit. Now let's go to the fourth benefit of cinnamon. That is that cinnamon provides some modest A1C, hemoglobin A1C improvement. As a matter of fact, in meta-analysis, several studies being analyzed, of course, for controlled trials too, found that there's a modest reduction in hemoglobin A1C levels when people use cinnamon. I'm talking about especially in cinnamon supplementation, not just a little bit in the shaker, but people who are consistently using cinnamon supplements. But before you pick that up, watch to the end, because we're going to talk to you more about the safety and stuff. All cinnamon, or is all cinnamon the same? Yeah. So let's talk about that. Cinnamon's effect actually really depend on a bunch of things, and also the batches, like whether it is kaolin or Ceylon, or whether it is Cassia, which is a stronger but has more coumarin, which can be an issue if you have too much. So, the Cassia is the common one, but could be a problem if you have too much of those because of the contents of what we call coumarin. Now, we'll talk about what coumarin does in a bit. It also depends on how much you take. So the person who has consistent doses of cinnamon may eventually have more benefit and, of course, associating toxicities if not, careful, compared to one that takes very little, And then also another thing is how long you take it. That's very important, or how long you use cinnamon, whether it's supplements or in your diet. And again, everybody's body is also different. Everyone's body, the way people respond to treatments of all kinds are different. Somebody may respond very well, somebody, it may not be much of a response. Now, the big question is cinnamon safe? Is cinnamon safe? And how much is safe if it is? Because, we know that for centuries, if not more, people have been using cinnamon, but in doses that are just, for food flavorings, just a dash here and there in your diet or in your cooking. Those are not the therapeutic doses that we're talking about. If you use a half teaspoon of cinnamon a day in your diet, or however you use it, that is generally considered fine. But when it comes to therapeutic doses, when people want to actually use it or harness cinnamon for blood sugar purposes, then you have to exercise caution, especially with Cassia cinnamon due to the coumarin content. The daily intake of, more than one teaspoon of Cassia cinnamon over a long term can contain excessive amounts of coumarin, which is the poisonous part of cinnamon, where we have to be careful about. Just more than 1 teaspoon could be toxic for the Cassia species. Before we go on to telling you about how much is safe and all that, if you have to use Cassia, or which one to use, if you have to use Cassia, I wouldn't do more than a half teaspoon a day. That's just a cheat right there. Now, for the kaolin cinnamon, or Ceylon, whether you call it kaolin or Ceylon cinnamon, definitely a safer alternative, especially with likely amounts or acceptable daily amounts of 1 1 to 2 teaspoons a day is safe. 1 to 2 teaspoons a day of the kaolin or the true cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon. 1 to 2 teaspoons per day for that is definitely safe. But even with that, it's advisable to start with a small amount. You can't just start right off the bat with 2 teaspoons. It's advisable to start slowly and then gradually increase it to the desired amount. It's also best to use kaolin cinnamon if you plan to consume more than the typical, culinary amounts. Especially if you're going to be using it for diabetes, or if you're going to be using it in supplements, or much higher doses beyond what the sprinkle is in your oatmeal here and there, or some kind of a dish, then I would definitely suggest that you stick to the true cinnamon, which is the Ceylon or the kaolin cinnamon. There are a couple of key points to note, though, is that significant differences exist even in the quality and the potency of active ingredients found in cinnamon supplements. So if you're going to be using a cinnamon supplement, you got to get that in mind, that there are going to be changes, the differences here and there between batches, even from company to company. And obviously, remember, the higher the content of the coumarin, the much worse it is going to be. So keep that in mind. The other thing to keep note is Cassia cinnamon contains higher coumarin amounts. And then there's where I said, wait to see, what is coumarin for? Coumarin actually is one that is going to affect your liver. It's toxic to the liver, I should say. It's a negative impact on the liver. So the higher amount of coumarin, especially in the Cassia species, will definitely make it more toxic to your body. And that is why sticking to the kaolin or the Ceylon cinnamon, the true cinnamon, is definitely better, especially when you're going to be using it for extended periods. If it's just in a dish, in a half teaspoon in a dish daily, it may be fine. But once you begin to talk about, making it in a supplement form, or taking it in the form of a supplement, or using it for desired blood glucose reduction purposes, then stick with a Ceylon or kaolin or Ceylon, which is the true cinnamon, which is much safer and has lower levels of the coumarin that we're talking about as toxic. So, what's the bottom line here? While cinnamon shows some promising potential in the research, especially for helping with diabetes or blood sugar lowering, it is clearly not a miracle cure. I don't want you to take from this video that you're going to, just get a miracle cure from cinnamon. What some people usually say, that's not where we are. So the key takeaway is to be smart and safe when it comes to using cinnamon. Well, first, remember the differences. Ceylon cinnamon or kaolin cinnamon is definitely safer choice for regular use due to its low coumarin levels. Second, also think of it as a potential helper alongside your main diabetes care or plan, and not merely a replacement. Definitely not a replacement. Not for healthy diet, nor for exercise. Not replacement for exercise. You still got to exercise. You still have to have your diet, and you still have to take your medications as prescribed by your prescriber. So if you have diabetes and you have heard about cinnamon, you don't stop your meds and say that I'm going to use natural cinnamon to reverse my diabetes. That is not where you want to be. While there's modest improvements, it's important that you do not stop your medications because of cinnamon. And most importantly, before also starting anything, especially in this case cinnamon, especially for therapeutic amounts, you have to please have a conversation with your healthcare provider and to make sure that it is right for you. Remember, safety issues. If you are already somebody with an issue with your liver, you don't want to be just messing around with any cinnamon you find on the market because of the toxicities that may be associated with the Cassia cinnamon. All right, so thank you so much for joining us today on this discussion on cinnamon. If you found this information valuable, please help us spread this knowledge by hitting the like button and sharing. And to make sure that you never miss an episode of videos, hit the subscribe button and then click on the notification bell. This way, you'll always be alerted. And we'd love to hear from you also. What are your thoughts on using cinnamon? Have you been using cinnamon already? Do you know your benefits so far? Can you share those with us? Let us know in the comments below. And until next time, this is Dr. Oteng, reminding you to stay informed, stay healthy, and most importantly, keep finding your rhythm for healthy life. Take care.